Garen has always been seen as a no-skill, brain-dead noob champion ever since his release. Despite having many notable changes to his playstyle over the years, especially right now, people are having issues with Garen and his low elo carry potential. This recent rise has to do with many different factors, not just simply going broken. The purpose of this video is to explain the major gap of knowledge between the best Garens and the uninformed community. Garen has always had the same kit since his release, with some changes along the way that drastically changed his playstyle. The biggest change to ever happen to Garen is the Juggernaut rework of 2015. This is where Garen's lane presence went down drastically. Garen's kit changed from early game focus to scaling focus, but in a very strange way. The two biggest changes to impact Garen were the W stack mechanic and gaining more spins per every 3 levels. The problem with these changes stemmed from the fact Garen's kit is very two-dimensional. If you give Garen weak numbers early, there's no way for you, the Garen player, to outskill someone. Garen's spin does negative damage until level 4, where he gains his first extra spin. This forces the player to play a very patient playstyle until you have the correct numbers to engage. This doesn't sound like a problem until you realize his kit is still that of a bully that scales harder with levels than with points in abilities, meaning that he needs to be at the very least even, preferably ahead. But he doesn't have the resources to reliably make this happen, making the champion just feel plain wrong until level 11. He's a scaler that peaks in the mid game, but gets outscaled after his W stacks and spins stop going up at 16, which also feels wrong. Being behind does not allow for Garen to be a champion mid game when he's supposed to be at his strongest. With no CC to bring to the table, Garen is forced into a position that many just don't seem to understand, that is until very recently. Garen has always been built the same since the Juggernaut rework. Max E and build Black Cleaver and get tanky, and his kit used to support that with flat penetration and old spin damage. Now every really good Garen maxes Q and rarely builds Cleaver.
Garen E needs to be like that strong, honestly, like because of how unreliable it is, like it needs to have that kind of power. And it used to, like the armor pen build used to support E, but now E is just, there's not enough support for it. And the itemization in the game, crit items are bad, penetration items are bad, so like we can't play around E anymore.
Focusing more on his assassin bursty side, the community has begun to pick up on this knowledge as well based on many factors. With the recent Garen vs Darius event, Q buffs, and streamers like Risty becoming more popular, the push for a different build became more widespread. More people began realizing the true strengths of Garen's kit in the current meta, building Tri-Gauge and melting a target with Q Ignite R. Garen has the 3rd highest base AD in the game, and the item works very well on him. Some may even propose too well. To that I can't exactly agree or disagree. For Garen to not have so much power thrown onto his Q and R, a lot would have to change. It is admittedly pretty unfair for this to happen, but it's what has always been happening since Season 7. Garen's build path in fact was better than it is now. With pre-game lethality runes, Garen would rush Ghostblade and achieve 40 lethality. Your full combo was enough to kill almost anyone on the map. It was very strong. MarineRevenge and Adam J loved Ghostblade Rush into Triforce, which gave them devastating damage to not only Q, but spin as well. There used to be a lot of support for Garen's spin last season, but now lethality and Black Cleaver just don't support the ability nearly as well anymore. Playing around Q is just better in every single way, as it's Garen's only utility spell. Triforce costs more gold than Ghostblade and doesn't guarantee a kill on most targets like Ghostblade did. You need components of Sterax to make this happen if the target is not a super squishy. It takes a lot more gold to be a threat on the map with the current build, so a big question is, why is Garen doing so well? Garen's strengths play a big role in the current meta of stay on the map and apply pressure. Garen does one of those things very well, and that's persevering to have a strong mid game. Although he can't push and roam like all these other assassins, he sure does destroy them. There are a lot of squishies that cannot handle Tri-Gauge Garen with his natural tankiness. They end up losing long trades due to his execute. His teamfight presence is also quite strong, his ability to zone out and deny true assassins like Rengar or Kha'Zix. Not to mention the fact he can also run down ADCs in the backline. On that topic, something to talk about on Garen that is very important is his power budget. A lot of his power is put into his villain mechanic, and even I think it's too much. Converting his ult over to true damage is massive on every single target, especially tanks. It allows Garen to have a target that he can for sure kill, but the villain mechanic is based off of kills. A support or very behind jungler could have kill steal from a very ahead Jhin who is actually doing all the damage. If that Jhin was the villain instead, Garen could make better use of his identity as a shutdown champion. Perhaps a system based off of gold or damage done would better suit the ability. However, that would just make the villain mechanic even stronger than it already is, which is why perhaps dialing down the true damage to 80%, or even getting rid of the 1% true damage on spin and basic attacks. The ability can serve its purpose better while not being overly random and ridiculous. Of course, taking away some power here leaves other parts of his kit very weak, especially one ability in particular. Garen's E is actually so bad right now, it is so useless until Sterak's. No base damage leaves this ability useless until you get bonus AD. Yes, it has armor shred tacked onto the ability that is not only personal power, but team power. This however just isn't useful until you get most of your spins. The armor shred applies at the end of your combo, leaving nothing for you to do with it, and only your team to follow up. In solo queue, it isn't the best option to rely on your team. If hitting 4 spins is some sort of skill expression, why is the isolation mechanic even a thing? If Garen was meant to be an armor shredding god, why am I penalized for damage being in the middle of a team fight? How am I even supposed to use this mechanic in lane when there are minions everywhere? I get that it was supposed to be to add to the joke of Garen in the brush, but in high elo, who is going to randomly face check? The reliability of spin has gone down the drain, especially because of his silence. With Triforce, Q hits like a truck, which can feel really unfair. Unfortunately, with E being so bad, we're forced to play around that Q. I don't know how Riot can fix this ability if I'm going to be honest. Even if they did revert the Q buff, the ability is still very strong. If it's nerfed to the ground with a useless spin, there's no point in playing the champion. Q is Garen's only form of movement, utility, and reliable damage right now. It is everything, which feels pretty wrong. Even then, the purpose of this ability isn't even supported that well. A 1.5 second silence to lock down a target is its real purpose, but it just feels like a mini R with how much damage it does. A silence is the weakest form of CC due to buffering, and the enemy being able to move in auto. Garen's silence used to be 2.5 seconds, which could really shut down a mage in a teamfight. 1.5 seconds, however, is quite underwhelming with the amount of CC and dashes present in the game. Garen was given a long windup on his Q to the power it once had. However, that power is gone now.
Because of the delay, and because certain characters are allowed to buffer abilities, there are situations where I silence a Kha'Zix while he buffered his W and Q during his jump, which he jumped during the animation of Q, so he still gets to use W and Q after being silenced. Those kind of interactions ruin the impact of his ability. It basically makes it so the silence doesn't exist.
Something like a 2-second silence would benefit Garen greatly, along with giving power to his E back. With a stronger E and less damage on Q, Garen cannot instantly destroy someone, but it also gives him the ability to apply more shred with E due to his rise in priority on targets. Quality of life changes would go very far on Garen. There are a lot of little things that just don't make sense about Garen's kit. Garen's W is on a 24-second cooldown level 1. With only 2 seconds of damage reduction, this is a massive window of punishment that leaves Garen cowering until it is back up. But he still has that lane bully kit. The passive stacking mechanic applies to all enemy units, which is great, but why doesn't he get double stacks for champion kills, cannons, and large monsters like Nasus and Scion? This passive is a huge part of his kit, getting tanky, getting level 11, and applying kill pressure on the map. Speeding up this process would really go a long way. As mentioned before, Garen's Q and R take too long. Just make it instant. The amount of times I've died while channeling these abilities tilts me so much.
What? Dude, bullshit, my ult didn't go off. Are you fucking serious, dude? Oh, man.
If something is going to change about him, it has to be this. Just how W needs more rewards, Garen's villain mechanic also needs a reward. With its current state of randomness, it's hard to see why so many other champions get reward but Garen doesn't.
I mean, my opinion is when they added the villain mechanic, they didn't nerf the ultimate damage in any way. So it was a free damage buff to his R. And like the rework came with some other changes, but I think that the villain mechanic is a positive thing because it just allows us to have a target. Like Garen's issue is not having enough reliable damage, and I feel like the villain gives him one target that he can count on hurting if he in a team fight, if he has like no other options. And I think that that's positive. Maybe he's like unfairly hurt, you know, in terms of like power and the rest of his kit because of it. Like I'm not exactly sure like what their stance on that is, but what I do think it's lacking is some kind of reward for killing the villain. I think most other characters that have a similar mechanic don't also get rewarded for fulfilling, like Darius gets a reset, or Fiora heals anybody standing in her AoE field, or Kindred gets permanent damage for the rest of the game. But Garen's not rewarded for killing his target, and since his is totally RNG, I feel like he should have the biggest reward out of all of them because he's the one that doesn't get to pick.
If you look at Cho'Gath, he gets health from successfully hitting his R, which in turn gives him more damage on his E. He's very simply rewarded, giving him in turn the identity Cho has. This would go so far on Garen, leaving the champion feeling more rewarding and with a better supported identity as a bursty, tanky assassin who deals damage and regens to look for another opportunity. I don't know what this reward would be, but something is missing from the villain mechanic.
I mean, I think Garen has an identity. I think it's just not supported well enough. I mean, what Garen does differently than the other juggernauts is he is the most bursty out of them all. And so he deals his burst and he gets out. And that's something that's like unique to Garen specifically. So I think he has an identity. I think he's like the most assassin-like of the bunch. The only problem is when he doesn't have the reliability to pull that off.
Thank you for watching, and a big thank you to MoonMarooned, formerly known as MarineRevenge, the OG Garen who has been a staple to the community. Please check out all these amazing fellow Garen mains, join the Garen community, and let's work on making this champion feel right. I also stream. My Twitch will be in the description along with everybody else's. My schedule is also posted weekly. Subscribe for future projects and highlights.